Hey folks, Mike Dadkak with you. I want you to head over to marketplace.drstellamd.com. That's marketplace.drstellamd.com. That's where you can find all the health and wellness products you need to make sure you're prepared for whatever comes next. She's got Vax detox bundles, pandemic preparedness kits, ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine supplies. You can sign up for a telehealth session and get the care you need from a doctor who's been telling us the truth about health and wellness and COVID from the very beginning. Head on over to marketplace.drstellamd.com. Use promo code ITN as Dr. Stella, who's a friend of the show and a friend to freedom loving patriots everywhere, has agreed to give ITN viewers a generous discount. Take care of yourselves and your families by going to marketplace.drstellamd.com and getting the supplies you need to remain prepared. Tell them Mike sent you. Ladies and gentlemen, good to be back with you again. We are chatting with the one and only Christian Briggs from Hard Asset Management. Christian, it's always a pleasure to see you, my friend. It's always good to have you come by and spend a little time with us because you make us so much smarter on all things finance. How is it going, my friend?
Good. Thanks for having me. I didn't know if I was making you smarter or making you run to hide sometimes with the topics.
A little bit of both. But I'll tell you what, sometimes, the truth has to be spoken about because when you're aware of what's happening, I know we're going to do a couple of shows in the future on some crazy things that are going on with Palantir and the like. But when you know what's happening, when you become aware, you can plan a little bit better. You understand the world around you a little bit better. So we welcome that, and even though sometimes it's hard to hear and it's hard to digest, we're the better off for it. We're going to talk today about H-1B visas, which is a topic that it really kind of ticks me off, to be honest. I don't like this program at all, and I know it's a small piece of the overall immigration pie and whatnot. But let's get into it. Let's talk about the H-1B program. Trump made an announcement the other week. What was that announcement exactly? What did he announce?
Well, what he did was he talked about a program that initiates individuals from around the world to come here, work under what I would consider to be some of the bigger tech names, even though that obviously resonates that program with any company for that matter. But technology-driven companies seem to gather or they garner a lot of those candidates because they're very smart individuals that come here to learn in our universities. And then, of course, then they further that education working in our company. So the announcement that Trump made was, hold on a second. You're getting that labor too cheap. Hold on. I'm going to put a little fee on that. Now, it was talked about originally, if you remember, Mike, they were going to do $100,000 per year in order to have an individual come to this country, get a particular type of work visa, because that's what it's, a work visa. Okay. It's a very specialized work visa, and say, okay, but the problem is when you've got people in America, men and women, that have gone to university training for computer science, or some type of training even in vocational schools, because there is computer science now and trade in vocational schools, not just high-end universities.
Right.
Those people sometimes get overlooked because they're expected to get paid what? More. Well, you get a young, inspiring engineer from India, he'll work for $50,000 because that's $45,000 more than he's going to make in India. So it was an inexpensive way to get talented people here, to use them within the ecosystem. Technology, again, kind of being the big part. And Trump's like, no. You're going to pay for that person. If that person is genuinely that good, he should be paid equal. And if you're not going to pay him equal, I'm going to charge you equal. So the federal government gets a fee to make it to where it's more fair. So this way you're incentivized to do what? Hire American trained individuals that would otherwise be outsourced to not less qualified, but less costly individuals. So what Trump's saying is, okay, you want those people from overseas to come here and take those jobs? You got to pay for it. And then people will say, well, maybe that guy over there that went to that school in North Carolina is just as qualified. He's now cheaper. He's less expensive. That's what the announcement was all about.
I can't tell you how much I like this, and I love the logic behind it, as you just so eloquently broke down. If this person is a premium person that you're bringing from overseas, why not pay a premium on it? What's the counter argument to this? It seems to me like you can't make the counter argument without exposing that you just want cheap labor.
Yeah, you want cheap labor. It's kind of like, why do you drink that beer over that one? Well, it tastes better. I mean, it's very simple. It's not just less calories. It's not just less filling. It's just tastes better.
Why do we rob banks, Christian? Because that's where the money is.
That's it. You know when Dillinger was arrested the third time, John Dillinger, and they asked him, they go, John, why do you keep robbing banks? He goes, duh, that's where the money's at.
That's where the money's at.
Right? Exactly. Why do you keep bringing over these really talented, smart engineers? Because that's where I save the money.
Because that's why I save the money. It's, you mentioned a moment ago, or I mentioned at the top, the slice of the pie. How big of a slice of the pie, the overall immigration pie and the tech worker pie, is the H-1B program? It's not huge, is it?
Oh, it's bigger than you think, because here's why. If you take the macro view from the political, the government side, it may not be a lot of people, but it represents a lot of economics, because you're paying these people about a third to half of what you otherwise would have paid. So the federal government's losing out on billions a year in tax revenue. That's billions. The local communities in the states are losing out on the extra pay the companies would otherwise have to put into the system by paying that. I'll give you an example, rather than try to do it in this way. If I'm paid, the average salary for a senior level developer with very, very high qualifications in Silicon Valley is $543,000 a year. Okay? Now, the taxes are high in California, federal, state, local, real estate, sales tax, all that stuff. You're netting about half, but that's still $250,000 to $275,000 a year net.
Yeah.
How much of that money goes back? If you're hiring somebody with the same quality of talent, you're paying them how much? $1.50. That's it. So the company in general, like it's Google, is saving $400,000 a year per. Now, again, it's not hundreds of thousands of people, but it's tens of thousands. In fact, it might even be close to 100, 200,000 on the high end when you go all the way down. Right. So now let's say it's 250,000, still a drop in the bucket. But if you're saving 200 to 400,000 a year, the federal government loses, the state loses, the local community loses. How many jobs at the grocery store, the convenience store, the gas station, the child care, the dry cleaners? And then the state taxes don't get collected. So then the services that they provide. And sometimes people say, oh, maybe it's good that we cut welfare. Well, that's another argument. The bottom line is we're just not paying people. So we got maybe 400,000 engineers that pay $100,000 for vocational or computer science degrees that are qualified. The only people that get rich is Google, is Meta, is Oracle. Okay, these are companies that are utilizing the system, and they're taking full advantage of it, and that's why their stocks are soaring. They got enough money. Google makes 10, 20 billion a year. Microsoft, 20 billion a year profits. They have more than enough money to pay these guys a little extra, hire American, do the right thing. It's all about doing the right thing. It's not about the money anymore, even though it is. You got to do the right thing. And I think what Trump's trying to do is call them out. Say, look, if you don't think that these people in America have the same quality of workmanship, let's just say it for what it is, whether you're a carpenter or you're a tech guy, it's workmanship, then okay, fine. But guess what? If you think the guy from India or the guy from Sri Lanka or the guy from Mexico or wherever, or China is better, great, pay them. You're going to pay them. But I bet you're going to be wrong when you think about Americans. They're the best workers in the world. We make the best stuff. We have the best people, and we have the best opportunities of any country in the world. So do what's right.
I think that is so smart. Do what's right. This idea of economic nationalism, every other country in the world practices it, and it's a bad word here. It's a 4-letter word here. When did this happen, and how did this happen?
This happened with Obama. He never liked the word nationalism. He always thought of communism. See, he's doing the wrong syllable, the wrong adjective, the wrong nouns. He was all about suppression. Okay, suppress through over regulatory environments, regulations, right? We know this to be true. And Trump's all about deregulation, American work. See, here's the thing. If we didn't have to have so many regulations, if it wasn't needed or necessary in the thought process by the regulators, like California, for example, over regulatory environment, Nightmare. If we didn't have people who thought that way, we wouldn't have to pay as much because we wouldn't have as much inflation. We would have better middle class, more middle class. We would have a higher level GDP from the bottom up, not the GDP from the billionaires down. See, when you overregulate, you have to pay more and we get less. That's a fact. It's a fact. And government doesn't put that money back into a system of growth. They put it back into a system of contraction because it continues to contract the middle class by numbers. So what Trump's calling out and saying to all of these big, it's mostly tech companies. I mean, just say it for what it is. I mean, Walmart, Target, they get their version of that, but it's only just the big 15 to 20 companies that are hiring, whatever the number is. I know it's a lot and it does fluctuate quite a bit, but he's calling them out saying three things. If you don't think the American worker is as good, great. You're going to pay for what you think is better. You're going to pay for it.
Right.
Two, if you think you can get around not paying them as much, then you're not doing the right thing. Okay, so do the right thing. And the third thing is, if you can't understand the first two, call me and I'll direct you. And that's what he's saying. Okay, if you have any issue with the first two questions or the reasons why you should be doing it, give me a holler and I'll set you straight. That's what Trump was trying to say.
This is the kind of thing, this is the kind of common sense thing. That's exactly what I voted for President Trump last year. And this is exactly what I voted for. This kind of common sense thing that you or I, these decisions that we would make if we're, or anybody else who truly cares about this country would make if they were sitting in that chair. This H-1B program, let's take a step back for a moment. Is this necessary? Is it really necessary?
Wow, that's a tough question. I mean, it's nice to give foreign exchange. I call them foreign exchange students at the end of the day, because that's kind of what they are. They're young people that have very strong viability. Look, if they weren't good at what they did, they're not going to get hired by Google. They're not going to get hired by Microsoft. So let's just,
fair enough.
Okay, so think about that. If they weren't qualified, they wouldn't be hired in the first place. So they are qualified. Let's just leave it there.
Right.
So you're giving opportunities sometimes to where certain people may never have that opportunity. I love the idea of taking someone from here with less opportunity, dropping them in America, and all of a sudden they're like, I won the lottery. What better does it feel to give a lottery ticket to somebody who probably would have never expected it in their entire life, let alone at the young age, right?
I take a lot of pride in that. That's a great point. You're 100% right. Yeah.
It's like that's the gift that keeps on giving. It'll help his family. It'll help generations. So there's value there. However, it's like Schumer demanding we pay $1.5 trillion for illegal aliens to have health care. Well, number one, you're putting it above American citizens, so it's already unconstitutional and it's not right.
Yeah.
Right. And number three, who's going to pay it? Who's going to pay it?
Right. Well,
hello? Who's going to pay it, man? Mike, we got $38 trillion, baby, almost worth of debt. You want another 1.5? Call Chuck and say, Chuck, how big is your 401k? Wire that down to the federal government and we'll use it.
The party is over 100%.
Yes.
This canard that companies can't find the talent here at home isn't, first of all, I challenge that. But even if you want to accept that at face value for the moment, isn't that the real problem that should be addressed? I mean, it's like me, you're renting a house from me and I come over and I bring you bigger and bigger pots. And you ask me, why am I bringing these bigger pots over here? And I say, well, to catch all the water that's leaking from the roof. I'm doing you a favor. I'm bringing you a bigger pot. Well, isn't the real problem that I need to fix the roof? Isn't the real problem that if there's a talent deficit here in the States, shouldn't we be doing something about that being the root cause?
Yeah. Well, first of all, there's no talent issue. There's a ton of developers that are being laid off every day because AI is replacing them. Let's just be realistic here. Come on. It isn't about talent. There's plenty of talent. You may just have to either pay a little more and bite the bullet. But let me tell you something. These people that come here for these programs, they usually don't stay 30, 40 years. They take 5 years. They get paid. They go back to their countries, learn, especially in China. I mean, China sends them over here to be higher educated, but higher educated in a manner of which that we teach specialized systems. And so it's really about also learning the method of the madness of what makes America successful. But there's plenty of talent here. They just don't want to pay. Come on. It's just all about the money. Name a company in the technology world that's not public. And if you're not public, well, then you're not worried about earnings and stock price. If you're public, baby, that's all you worry about is making that quarter, beating the quarter. We got to keep that stock because why? You got stock options to the employees. They expect growth because that supplements their benefits, right? Sometimes they'll take a little bit lower salary for stock options that long term can make them millionaires. So you got to win. You have to win. You have to win every
Yeah.
quarter. So they're
Yeah.
going to take the lowest common denominator with the highest amount of talent. I always said they want the most amount of work done in the quality, efficiency manner with the least amount of pay. And so it's not about finding the talent here. It's about finding the equal talent for a lot less money. And what Trump's trying to say is, and I love what you said, logic. He's trying to say, guys, you think you're saving money, but you're not. If you were hiring local people in America and paying them more, they're going to spend more. That ecosystem goes 6 layers deep. I'll give you an example.
Right. Yes.
Right. There's 2 types of industries in America. There's heavy industry, and then there's everything else in services. Services do not replicate a dollar into the economy by very much, maybe 2 to 1, 3 to 1. Heavy industry is 12 up to 12 to 1, but 6 at a minimum. So that means is if you're hiring local, which means American trained, American born, American stationed people, and you're in heavy industry, you might have every dollar that's manufactured. It goes 12 layers deep into the economy from the federal, state, local levels. You can't beat that. You hire foreigners, hell, they send half their money back to that other country. They're paid too little. They don't stimulate the local economy. And half the money goes back to India, Guatemala, Mexico, China, Vietnam, Cambodia, wherever the hell they're from. Remember, the largest industry in Mexico until Trump said no more was sending money from America to Mexico for the Mexicans. Did you know that? That was the number one industry in Mexico. $150 billion a year was going to Mexico at a minimum for the illegals that come here. They work, pay no taxes, mind you. They pay no Social Security. They get benefits. And then the money they do make, they would send half of it, sometimes more, because they all, they live together, and so they have lower rents, I guess, because you times it by 40 people in an apartment. And then they send that money back to Mexico. And guess what? Mexico, no more, they don't get that money. We made it illegal for anybody who doesn't have proof of citizenship to send money out of the country. That's $150 billion that stays in our ecosystem.
That money is being sucked out of the country or being mined.
Yes. It's like a trade deficit, but this is a labor deficit. Nobody calls it up. Trump saw it coming. He's like, dudes, listen, if an economy has $1 billion, a local economy that kind of circulates and regurgitates itself, it stimulates one part stimulates another. The factory keeps a town going. Remember the old story is if that factory or that coal mine was to shut down, the town shuts down. Well, what he basically did, what Trump said, okay, if we stop the money flow from America to, well, Mexico being the largest, but let's just say China, wherever, we're going to be able to keep that cash here. It regurgitates itself. It recirculates. It redefines a strong economy, local, state, or not really federal, but mostly local and state. Mostly local communities get the benefit of that. When we have these foreigners come over here, I call them exchange students because they're still products of learning, and they send the money out. First of all, they're paid half, so the economy only gets half the value on 100% of the talent. And then of the half that they get paid, half of that goes out of here, so they're getting a quarter. So the whole point is, for every dollar these cats make that are foreigners, only 25 cents on the dollar at best is the value proposition. If we paid the American workers, these tech companies like Apple, you'd sell more phones. Well, how's that possible? Well, if I was making $250,000 net, okay, grossing, let's say 500 in California, versus grossing 150, netting 75, how many more phones can I buy for my kids?
You're going to upgrade every year, right?
Bingo. That's what I'm saying. Like the old folks say, when they got all the numbers lined up, bingo.
No, we lose from every angle under this proposition. I'm glad you mentioned the quality and how the talent deficit doesn't really exist. It's just that. It's a canard. I know a couple of people in the advanced programming field, quants, I think they're called, and they will tell you that maybe it was true 15 or 20 years ago, but today, this idea that hiring from overseas, and the example that they both gave were workers from India, high-tech workers from India, that there's a lot of fraud going on there now. There's a lot of, if you want to call it resume fraud, people who will say that they're qualified in certain things, and then they come here and then the companies find out that they're not as qualified as they purported to be. Speak on that for a second. Are you seeing that? Are you hearing that?
Well, it's hard for me to put in context what is or isn't. You hear the rumors,
Yeah.
and some of those rumors are started to hurt the programs. Some rumors
Yeah.
are starting to help the programs.
Yeah.
Now, is there any kind of waste in anything? You bet. If you go to your trash can, people say, well, it's all waste. Well, there's even more waste when you don't fill your trash can up all completely. And
Right.
the dumpster is only a third, but the truck still comes and tends 100% of the time taking
That's
this
right.
much trash out. That's
That's
wasteful.
right.
That's inefficient.
That's
There's
right.
inefficient, there's waste in every program, every agency, no matter how it is. You try to minimize that so it doesn't cost more money to operate a business, or in this case, sometimes government. I don't know so much about if it's a lot of fraud or waste. I will say this: the whole program is flawed. It was a good program at a point. It's like unions. Unions were started 150 years ago to
Right.
protect child labor. How
Right.
many children do you know under the age of 18, 16, 15, 12 are working in the Detroit auto manufacturing business? Okay.
That would be right around 0.
Zero.
Right.
You get caught with a 12-year-old kid spot welding on the assembly line, you better have a lot of parents' permission, because
You're
someone
in
big
for
time
it.
is going to
That's
come
right.
down hard on you
That's
for
right.
doing that. Unions are outdated. Okay. So the whole program, this visa program, is outdated. It's outdated. You need to hire American. You need to realize the value proposition is far greater. You're going to make more money, do the right thing. Your people are going to love your company.
Yeah.
So quit trying to always make the dollar the absolute reason you do anything. It sometimes doing the right thing, when you're if you're Sergey or Larry, the two founders of Google, or Larry Ellison of Oracle, or the Bill Gates of the world, and you have these big opportunities, spend a couple of bucks and do the right thing so people actually like you. They don't like you right now. Trust me when I tell you, the founders of these big tech companies right now are not on the popularity list of anybody. Bill Gates, he's not popular right now.
They're
But he could
villains.
flip that narrative. Zuckerberg could flip that and say, I'm going to help Americans with two things: get a job and help them keep the job and make money. See, if you really want to do the right thing, you got to start with what? Doing the right thing. And that's not employing people from afar. When we've got unemployment here, we've got qualified people living in areas that are ready to go. I promise you. You can find some 24-year-old engineering kids that would work for $80,000 a year, that you're going to pay 80 grand for a foreign student, foreign talent anyway. But buy the guy that's local. I always say buy local.
Buy local. No, I think that is so smart. You also say something else that I think is very smart. You say economic austerity. It's essential. Tell us what you mean by that.
So a lot of times when people try to look at the company's bottom line and they try to look at the lowest common denominator, it's like this. Do you remember the space shuttle? There were two. There was the Challenger that blew up in '86 and the Columbia that blew up over Texas years later. Okay.
Yeah.
Do you know that the parts, the O-rings on the Challenger, were supplied by who? The lowest common provider on the bid process. And before that thing went up that day, they were told, do not put that shuttle into space. Do not do it. We can't guarantee the quality of the work that could be sustainable at the low levels of that freeze that they had. Because remember, it got real cold that day in Florida, way lower than they've ever seen before. That would they give them any kind of a green light? They said, no, we wouldn't pause the space shuttle. They said, no, Ronald Reagan's watching. The people are watching. Let's light that candle. See, that's what people sometimes think is the best way of going, is keep it cheap, keep the profits high. No matter what happens in the middle, we'll work through it. There was another thing like the Pinto. Ford had a car called the Pinto. Now, back about 40 years ago, that Pinto was having a little issue with the way the gas tank was put into the car. Get a rear end, the car blew up. Ford decided it was still worth the risk not to recall them. See, I look at this difference. When I look at it and measure any kind of economics, whether it's austerity from the government or corporations have to kind of pull in the reins a little bit, you got to do the right thing. And Ford finally had to do the right thing with the Pinto. NASA had to do the right thing with the space shuttle. And well, of course, the Columbia proved that they were trying to do it. They didn't do it quite all the way. Get Americans working. It's the old saying is, I would rather know what I've got, because I have consistency in my hiring, consistency in my employees, in the training, in the work environment. but you're constantly bringing in new people from different cultures, different backgrounds, different races. And a lot of times it doesn't mix, but you still got to spend the money to train them. But you're paying them so low, sometimes the objectivity of what you're doing is missed. And all of a sudden you say, oh, I'll just work through it. When you don't realize that you're creating an environment that doesn't help promote economic prosperity. It's like Ford. You're not promoting a brand very well when you get caught knowing that the Pinto had huge problems, safety problems. Every time it got rear-ended, the gas tank blew up. It was a design flaw. Finally, they got caught, had to redress it, and they had to fix it. And they paid a lot of money for that. So I always said this, rather than having to go through economic austerity because you got kind of like, okay, I was wrong, do the right thing so you never have to be called out, and you don't have to worry about working through issues or problems because you got a system that is consistently stable and predictable. It's predictable. It's like good government. Good government should be predictable. But right now we're living in chaos, right? Because poor Trump is doing everything he can to do it right. Bring America manufacturing back. The tariffs are one measure to bring that prosperity back, to level the playing field. But Biden, Obama, they created chaos. They tried to lower the American standards of economic growth. They tried to bring in all sorts of regulations, and they tried to socially change the fabric of America from capitalism to quasi-communism and socialism. And to me, when you're bringing in talent from other parts of the world, underpaying them, that don't really bring prosperity to the economy and to the local communities, you're bringing chaos. That's economic austerity. You're bringing in something that's unstable. It's instability at the very least, and it can't be measured with the quality of life. I mean, these people, they're not getting paid enough. They're not going to feel the love, and I don't think their work. This is my personal opinion. I don't think the work will ever be as good from a foreign person that a dedicated American who loves the country, who's born here, who loves what he's doing, and he's from the local community. I just think they're going to work better. I think you're going to get higher productivity out of them. That's what I've seen in the past. And until it changes, I'm going to stay with that story.
I think this idea of an economic ecosystem that you espouse, I think it's $1 million idea. That's exactly how we have to think about it. This idea of wage suppression, I mean, these folks that are coming in are getting paid less, and because they're getting paid less, everyone else is getting paid less. It's a real thing, and it's very, very damaging.
It's economic austerity. That's what I'm saying. Nobody's ever said it. Excuse me. And I'm trying to tell people it's a real thing. In the 30s, 20s, and I think up to maybe the 50s, excuse me, the coal mining industry in Pennsylvania and other parts of the country, Virginia, West Virginia, they purposely paid low. You know about this?
No. They paid low in the mines?
Sure, they paid pennies on the dollar. Because here's why. They didn't want them getting rich. They wanted dependency. Think about that. What they do today at the tech companies. They didn't
want economic mobility. They wanted people staying put.
You got it. You get just enough to survive, but not enough to leave. Think about that.
Boy, does that sound familiar. Does that sound familiar, folks, or what? You're kind of stuff. You know, Christian, my feed, and I'm sure yours is as well. Yeah. It's full of people, and it's depressing as all get out, because it's full of people who are literally bawling. They're crying their eyes out, and they're sitting there in their cars after getting off of a double shift at work, and they're telling us that they've worked 60 or 70 hours a week. Their spouse works the same, and they are barely getting by. This is a crime. It is a national scandal. No one should have to work 70 or 80 hours a week and barely get by. This is not America anymore. If that's what's going on, this is no longer America.
Mike, let's go back to 1969. A postal worker, a mail carrier, could afford the average cost of a home, the average price of a home in America on his salary, no problem.
Can you imagine?
Okay? No way. And let me tell you what these companies, I can prove I'm right about this. Go look at the balance sheets of the top 50 United States corporations, regardless of industry. Look at how much cash they're sitting on. Mm-hmm. Look at how much cash, about $2 trillion. Now, what if, I'm just going to spitball here, 20% increase in wages across the board. Do you think they're going to miss that money? No,
Not at all.
no. It would not make a difference in the long-term growth of the company. It would, in fact, it would probably accelerate the growth. And people are like, how can that happen? Well, I'm glad you asked, because when you pay a little bit more, the community benefits so great because the dollar gets recirculated, regurgitated in the economy. It goes from this person to this person to this person to this person. Think about this: if you're making $300,000 a year versus 150, that's more discretionary cash to spend. You're going to eat out more. You're going to buy your wife a newer car every 2-3 years instead of every 7 to 10. Think about that. You're going to probably get a little bit of a remodeling, and guess what else? The pool for the kids. That's $200,000. You're not going to pay cash, but you're going to do a 10 or 20-year note. Why? Because you can afford it. And then the pool guy has more money in his pocket. What's he do? He buys a newer iPhone. What does that do?
Exactly
Apple
right.
now sells more iPhones. And we keep
exactly
the
right.
cash in America, and we increase. This is what Trump's trying to do. That's what he's trying to do. But nobody's listening.
Nobody's listening, but we are glad that you are, my friend, because you tell it like it is, and you tell us what we need to know. We have a few seconds left here. Tell the folks about Hard Asset Management and the great work that you guys do over there.
Man, we do a lot of stuff. We sell precious metals by the gangbusters. You can find me at BMC_HAM on Twitter, X. I still call it Twitter. I don't know. I'm probably always going to.
So do I.
I mean, it's like Facebook.
So do I.
And if anybody doesn't like it, well, too bad. So BMC_HAM. Follow us there. Hard Asset Management is BMCHAM.com. Call us toll free for a quote on precious metals. Love to give you a price. Gold, silver, platinum, palladium. And by the way, platinum is the new gold. Mark my words. Platinum is going to double before gold doubles, because gold's already done really well. Don't get me wrong. Gold's solid. If you buy gold, you're fine. You buy silver, you're great. But platinum is going to be the next big move with palladium, because those are the metals that are going to be strategic to Donald Trump's plan of nuclear energy.
Wow, you heard it here first, folks. And we'll put that link in the show notes so you can get plenty more great advice if you want to avail yourself of Christian's services, which I highly recommend you do. Christian, it is always a pleasure to have you on, my friend. Thanks so much for coming by, and we'll see you again real soon.
You too, Mike. Thanks, guys. And thank you, everybody out there. Appreciate your time. Thank you, Mike.
All right.